I bought the very first version of Final Cut Pro in 2000. It's a non-linear video editor, and it was an application that was made specifically for Apple Mac computers. It was a true paradigm shift in using and learning video editing using desktop computers. That was almost 25 years ago. At the time, I really believed that this was a new era in digital video. Especially for me, I needed to learn video editing with this new type of digital video equipment. Because my college education has been in a downward spiral since literally everyone was now using a PC, and the most popular thing to have was Windows 98 on your desktop tower. Also, Steve Jobs was back, and the CEO at Apple. And Apple started making truly innovative hardware soon after. And I studied the new iMacs when he first introduced them. I learned about the new iMac's technical specs, and they were specifically made to do media production as well as internet content consumption. Really, people didn't see the genius in the work he was doing at the time. Of course, he hired probably the best people to work at Apple, and this team knew about the newest technologies and secrets they were creating and working on. So I changed my career to digital video from analog commercial photography. Because the transition from regular analog video cameras, they called them camcorders, to digital video cameras, or DV cams, was relatively simpler to do because of similar hardware technology. With analog still photo cameras to digital still photo cameras, they haven't become really affordable yet, because the expensive lenses and new camera bodies. It would be few more years before I could actually afford these cameras. But I thought I was finally going to get freelance jobs and build my video business and make some profit again by doing digital videos. I was drowning from doing analog still photography. I was making expensive fine art photo work by doing a money-losing public art project. But I didn't know that at the time. I lost so much money. Since Apple was making these highly innovative computers, I thought everyone else would see that too. The iMacs were truthfully better than most Wintel towers of the time. State-of-the-art stuff. But I was wrong. Hordes upon masses bought Windows computers, or they really bought the mostly cheap, no-name computers with sketchy hardware add-ons. And with clone Windows software. And because the loudest people were also the most ignorant ones, almost always, those Windows clones loudmouths didn't want to hire me because I was using a funny iMac computer from a so-called failing, bankrupt company. They incorrectly and fraudulently believed that. But too many people thought that. But the people who knew about Macs and about using Final Cut Pro? Most of the creative people that could use Final Cut Pro didn't have to hire me, because they could edit digital video on their Macs by themselves. And the people who could afford to pay someone like me, they could hire anyone they wanted. But since I didn't have the proper Apple equipment, meaning the most expensive Apple hardware, those people would only hire the DV editor with the newest and fastest, which means the editor with the most expensive Apple computer system. That's what they wanted, and they had the money. I never had the best Mac system, or I didn't even have a good Mac system, by regular person standards. My Mac system was getting too old, and in the start of the new century. In Y2K, nobody wanted to hire me doing video editing work. Even with Final Cut Pro. And unlike most people, I didn't have credit cards anymore. Because of the public arts fiasco. But using computers, for most people in the Y2K era, was starting to become more commonplace. Actually, Google only became the search engine of choice 2 years before. Before that, it didn't exist. So Americans wanted to become computer literate immediately. Like right now. And buying a Windows clone tower from Fry's or Computerland or Good Guys will make you look like you know a lot about computers. And the funny thing about those computer stores, they all disappeared selling Windows clones hardware. And the customers really didn't know a lot about computers. It was the farthest from the truth. Most of those so-called computer literate people just logged onto America Online and just hung out in a chat room. And that's it. They could do that with a Mac. But those people wanted the bargain basement prices. So no Macs for them. 23 years later, Apple is now the biggest company in the world. And people in Y2K laughed at us. I learned using Final Cut Pro. It was a program made by Apple, and any other program I needed to know, at the time, was made by Adobe, like Photoshop, and they charged like $800 or $900 to buy it. I think FCP was half the cost, and you could use it on any Mac you owned. You could only use Photoshop on one Mac. That's what happened to people like me with professional Mac technology experience in a Windows whatever world. That was 23 years ago. Final Cut Pro for iPad is now here. The world has really changed from the year 2000. But do people nowadays really even know the difference about the latest non-linear video editors, like DaVinci Resolve versus Premiere Pro versus the new FCP for iPad? Do they even care anymore? I hope they want to learn Final Cut Pro for iPad in a more agnostic landscape than it was in the brute force mentality of the Y2K era. I really hope so.